I still remember the sound of that iron gate opening slowly, and my scooter dying right in front of that mansion. In that second, I understood I had entered a place where people like me don't belong, and getting out of there in one piece wasn't guaranteed. I'm Riley Morgan, delivery girl, 24 years old, holding everything together on my own to keep Nana Evelyn alive, and a roof over our heads on the outskirts of Chicago. That day, I had just one goal: drop off a package of medicine at Cedar Ridge Estates and get back to my world. But the person who opened the door was Grant Whitmore, and he looked at me like I was the first real person he'd seen in years. I thought it was just a delivery. But he said something that hasn't left my head to this day. And when I found out who really ran that house and what that silence was hiding, I realized I wasn't just the girl from the app. I had become part of a story that could break someone. Or save them. Before I tell you this secret, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? Under the rain and exhaustion, I went up that hill with my old scooter, coughing in a way that seemed like mockery. And the fine rain came sideways, stinging my face like needles. The helmet fogged up on the inside, and I had to lift the visor just a bit to see, feeling the cold air hit my nose directly. The street was shining wet, full of leaves stuck to the asphalt, and every curve seemed ready to throw me to the ground. I gripped the handlebars until my knuckles turned white and silently begged that engine not to die right there. Because, look, I had already spent the night awake with Nana Evelyn complaining of pain, calling my name softly, like someone afraid to be a bother. When the alarm rang, I didn't even remember if I had slept or just passed out with my eyes open. The room I rent smells of mold and the neighbors frying, and when it rains, the wall sweats like a nervous person. Even so, I left with my usual smile, that stubborn smile I use so I don't give the world the satisfaction of seeing me break. The app blinked on the phone screen, clipped to the holder. Pharmacy delivery priority. I saw the address and almost laughed because it looked like a prank. 18 Cedar Crest Drive, Cedar Ridge Estates. If you live in the United States, you know what that means. High gate, security, cameras, people who never lose power. I looked at my torn gloves, at my soaking sneakers, and thought, of course. Today I'm going into the place where even the dog probably has health insurance. I just wanted to drop the package and disappear from there. But the hill wouldn't end, and my scooter started failing harder, as if choosing the worst moment to die. The engine gave a long choke. I felt the rear dance on the wet lane, and I pulled to the side by force, breathing short. Rain ran down my cheap coat and dripped onto the medicine package inside the thermal bag, and I went to check if everything was dry, as if that were the only thing I could control that day. When I turned the corner and saw the condo wall, I had that feeling of walking into the wrong movie. Everything too clean, too silent. The aligned trees, the trimmed grass, the low lights on the path, even with the overcast weather. I stopped in front of the gate, trying to fix the wet hair sticking to my forehead, and rehearsed my voice so I wouldn't sound like a girl asking for a favor. But right when I was about to press the intercom, I heard my scooter's engine give its last breath behind me, and die for good. The gate of silence, I pressed the intercom button with a wet hand, and for a second I only heard static, that dry hiss that sounds like the device itself is too lazy to talk to you. I stood there, holding the medicine package against my chest like a shield, feeling the rain run down the back of my neck. On the other side, no voice. Just the distant sound of a sprinkler turning off and the wind passing through perfectly pruned leaves. Then the gate started to move slowly, with a deep creak of heavy metal making way. When it opened enough for me to see inside, I saw a house that didn't even look like a house. It looked like a set. Light stone, tall windows, a garden that looked like someone combed it. And the worst was seeing my reflection in the polished metal of the gate. A small, soaked girl with a tired face, a thermal backpack on her back, and a dead scooter out there like an abandoned dog. I adjusted my body, pulled my shoulders back, and walked in because I learned early that if you lower your head too much, the world steps on you. The main door opened before I even got close, and the person who appeared wasn't security. It was him. Tall, shirt with sleeves rolled up as if he had just done something manual, but with that air of someone who's in charge even in silence. His face was serious, handsome in a way that makes you angry, and his eyes had something that didn't match a mansion: weariness. It wasn't a villain face. It was the face of someone who sleeps little and talks even less. He looked first at the package, then at me, and his expression didn't change. Just became more attentive. "Pharmacy delivery for Mr. Grant Whitmore?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The word "Mr." came out louder than I wanted because the place demanded it. He took the package carefully, looked at the name on the label, and let out a short breath, almost a humorless laugh. "It's for my father," he said. And then on a strange impulse, he added, "But honestly, the one who needed medicine was me." The sentence was so off script I froze for half a second, not knowing if I should answer or pretend I didn't hear. The rain got heavier and I felt my shoulders tense with the cold. He noticed. I saw it because his gaze went down to my soaked coat, to the way I shrank unintentionally, and something in his face gave way minimal, like a muscle giving up the fight. "Do you have the motorcycle out there?" he asked, pointing with his head to the gate. "Scooter," I corrected, without intending to sound rude. "And it died. For good." I tried to laugh to disguise the embarrassment, but it came out weak. He stood on the threshold, as if choosing between two versions of himself. The version that closes the door and goes back to silence, and the version that does what a normal human being would do. His hand gripped the side of the package a little tighter, then relaxed. "Come in," he said simply, as if it were an order and an invitation at the same time. I hesitated because every instinct of mine said not to enter a rich stranger's house. But outside I had rain, cold, and a dead scooter. Inside I had light and a strange guy saying, "Come in." I took 2 steps and felt the air of the house, too clean, too perfumed, with that smell of expensive product and waxed wood. The floor made no noise. The hallway seemed long, empty, and the whole house had a quietness that wasn't peace. It was a lack of people. He closed the door behind me, and the sound of the gate outside disappeared as if I had crossed into another world. Then he turned sideways, looking at me again, and spoke in a low tone, almost a confession. "You look exhausted." I swallowed hard because I wasn't ready to be seen like that in there. And before I could answer anything, I heard a noise coming from inside the house slow. Shuffling steps and a weak female voice calling his name. The tea that disarmed pride, I followed Grant down a hallway too wide for a house with so little life, and with every step I felt my clothes dripping on the perfect floor. I wanted to apologize for the water trail, wanted to disappear before touching anything expensive, but he walked ahead as if that were the least of his problems. The kitchen appeared at the end of the hall, huge, modern, with shining counters and a window showing the garden like a painting. Even with everything so impeccable, the room had an air of unused, as if no one stopped there to talk. Just passed through, just survived. "I'll call someone to look at your scooter," he said, grabbing his phone and typing fast. I stood near the door, not knowing where to put my hands. Then he looked at me, noticed my slight shivering, and pointed to a chair. "Sit! You're dripping!" I sat down slowly, keeping the thermal backpack on my lap as if it were part of my body. He opened a cupboard, took out a mug, then another, and put water in a kettle without asking me anything, as if he already knew what to do with the silence. When the water started to boil, a smell of ginger appeared in the air, along with cinnamon. Not soulless teabag tea. It was the kind of smell that gets into your nose and gives a feeling of home, even inside a mansion. I watched him digging in the drawer, looking for something, and couldn't hold back the question that came out a bit crooked. "Do you always make tea for strangers?" I tried to joke, but my voice came out low, and I thought it sounded like a provocation. He stopped for a second, spoon in hand, and looked at me as if deciding whether to answer truthfully. Then he let out a short sound, almost a laugh, and said, "Only for those who seem to need it more than me." The phrase hit me in a strange way because it was absurd coming from someone who lives there. I looked at the wall clock that looked like a decoration item and thought about my damp room. Nana Evelyn coughing at night, the crumpled bills in the drawer, and even so, he looked tired in a way I recognized. He put the mugs on the table, and when the steam rose, he stood looking for an instant as if that were the only warm thing existing in his life. I held the mug with both hands and felt the sensation return to my skin. Outside, the rain continued, but in that kitchen, the sound was muffled, comfortable. I didn't know where to look. The utensils arranged like a display case, The huge fridge, the soft lights embedded in the ceiling. Everything screamed money, but the way he moved screamed loneliness. "Do you do this every day?" he asked, pointing with his chin to my backpack, my wet coat, my whole self. I didn't answer with a speech. I just shrugged and said the obvious. I do what I have to do. And then, unintentionally, I told a piece of it. I talked about Nana Evelyn, the appointments, the rent, the app that cuts payment if you're late. I didn't tell it for pity. I told it because the tea was hot and because, for the first time in a long time, someone asked me without looking at the clock. Grant stayed quiet, listening. Didn't try to fix anything. Just listened, and I saw his look change, as if every word of mine peeled a layer off the tough guy he showed at the door. When I finished, he leaned his back against the counter and spoke low. "In here, everyone thinks I have everything." He took a short breath, pursed his lips for a second, and continued. "But I can't stand in silence without feeling worse." That wasn't a movie line. It came out as ugly truth. And I realized the invitation to come in hadn't just been kindness. It had been necessity. The kettle clicked. He moved as if the sound had broken a trance. "Your mechanic arrives in 20 minutes, he said, checking his phone. I nodded, ready to get up and leave as soon as I could. But before I could say anything, the sound of a cane tapping the floor came from the hallway, slow, careful, and a weak but sweet female voice called, "Grant, who is there with you?" I saw his face transform again, not into hardness, into protection. And I knew I was going to meet the person who really ruled that house, even without shouting. Eleanor Whitmore's smile. The sound of the cane came before the person. A light tap on the floor, then another, until a woman appeared in the hallway as if crossing a place too big for her. Tied back hair, light sweater, sweet and attentive look. She stopped at the kitchen entrance, looked me up and down, dripping coat, backpack on my lap. Face like someone who'd been up all night, and broke into a smile that I swear made that house feel less cold. "Grant, who is this young lady?" Her voice was low, but had the quiet strength of someone who doesn't ask for permission. Grant straightened up instantly. "Mom, she's the pharmacy delivery girl." The word delivery girl hit me like a label. I started to get up, ready to thank them and leave, but she advanced slowly, leaning on her cane, and waved her hand as if pushing that label into the trash. "Delivery girl, nothing. You brought medicine, brought presents. And that's worth more than many visits." She touched my wrist lightly, like someone confirming I'm real. "What's your name, dear?" Riley Morgan." She repeated my name like she was keeping it in a safe place. Then she looked at my soaked coat and dropped, "Grant, towel." Now, he went to get it without arguing. She pulled out a chair and sat down carefully. Even fragile, she occupied the whole room. "This ginger tea," she said, smelling the steam. "I used to make it when Grant was a boy. He was always coming back from school totally wrecked." I laughed unintentionally. Back home, my grandmother makes cinnamon tea when I get sick. Eleanor tilted her head, genuinely interested, and asked about Nana Evelyn as if she'd known her for years. I answered the basics, but my fingers gripped the mug, because talking about Nana out loud always hits me in a specific spot. The conversation slipped into old recipes, simple food, things that have no price, only memory. Eleanor told me about a sweet bread she learned from a neighbor in Wisconsin. I talked about what you can make when money is tight and the day is long. And then something I didn't expect happened. Eleanor laughed, a real laugh, short, warm. I saw Grant stop for half a second, staring at his mother as if he had forgotten that sound. Eleanor noticed and aimed at him. "It's been a while since you laughed with me, boy." He looked away and wiped his hand with a towel, slowly, as if trying to stay in control. She changed the subject without warning. "Do you read, Riley?" I almost answered, "When I can," but she followed up. "Don't tell me you just work and sleep." I let out an awkward laugh. "I read on the bus when I get a break." Eleanor looked satisfied. "I knew it. You observe too much not to read." Grant finally let out a sound that almost turned into a laugh. Then his phone vibrated with the message from the mechanic, and I used that as an exit. "I'm going." Eleanor held my fingers for an instant. "Come back any day. Even just to tell me a recipe of Nana's." When I took 2 steps out, Grant spoke low, as if it were his fault. She liked you. Eleanor answered over him without looking. I just like real people. And when the gate started to close behind me, I already knew that delivery hadn't ended, it had just changed its name. The delivery that turned into a date I thought it was going to be just that morning. Just a weird story to tell myself and forget. But 2 days later, the app threw another order in my lap. Guess the address? 18 Cedar Crest Drive. I stared at the phone screen as if it had insulted me. No, it's not possible, I muttered and accepted it anyway. The rain wasn't so heavy, but the sky was still gray, in that way that leaves the city looking tired. When I arrived at the gate, it opened too fast, as if someone was waiting. I parked the scooter and walked with the package in hand, trying not to look like I had rehearsed what to say. Grant opened the door with the same rolled-up shirt, but his look was different, less defensive, more attentive. You came, he said, as if I had appeared by my own will and not for a service. I lifted the package. The app came, I answered, trying to keep it light. He let out a short smile and let me pass. Eleanor appeared in the hallway before I even reached the kitchen. Riley, she said my name like I was family. I said you would come back. I laughed a bit awkwardly and felt my shoulders drop. Grant stood behind her, pretending he wasn't paying attention to every detail. My mom asked about you 5 times yesterday, he said, in a tone that sounded like complaint and pride at the same time. Eleanor shot him a look. 5? It was more. Grant raised his hands, surrendering, and I almost laughed out loud. In the following days, it became a routine without anyone calling it a routine. Sometimes it was medicine, sometimes vitamins. Once it was a small, silly package, and I was sure he had made it up. When I joked about it, he didn't even deny it. I just like the sound when you enter here, he said, simply, catching me off guard. I gripped the backpack strap tight and looked away to the counter because there was stuff there I didn't know how to deal with. Someone rich, handsome, alone, looking at me as if I were part of a place where I didn't fit. But he didn't try to impress me. There was no luxury in the conversation. There was pause. There was care. He made tea the way Eleanor liked, sat to listen to her stories. And I saw a whole mansion change its face because of 2 mugs and a laugh. Sometimes he asked me about Nana Evelyn, and I answered shortly, hurting inside, because I don't like to admit how much I carry alone. He didn't come with a speech. Just listened, as if listening were serious work. There was a day I left and, already on the sidewalk, realized I was truly smiling inside the helmet. Then the shame came right after because I remembered the difference in worlds. I remembered my damp room and that huge house. I remembered that people like me don't enter this kind of story without paying a price. When I looked back, I saw Grant standing at the door, not waving, just following me with his gaze until I turned the corner. And in that instant, I understood he wasn't buying anything in me. He was trying to remember what it's like to feel something that doesn't come from a contract. When silence scares that Tuesday, I woke up with my phone vibrating nonstop, and it wasn't a delivery. It was the hospital. The voice on the other side spoke fast, too technical, and I only understood pieces. Nana Evelyn, ambulance, blood pressure. We need someone here. I put on the first clothes I found, shoved the charger in my bag, and ran out without even thinking of telling anyone. The app stayed open on the screen, notifying order after order, and I kept pressing decline, as if putting out a fire with my finger. Hours later, I was sitting on a hard hallway chair, staring at a closed door with a sign that told me nothing but wait. The air smelled of disinfectant and bad coffee. I kept shaking my leg and gripping the backpack strap, as if that held the world in place. When the doctor came out, he explained the basics: unstable condition, tests, observation, and I nodded as if I understood everything, even feeling like I could fall apart right there. Across town, I didn't know, but my silence had become an alarm. Grant waited for the delivery that didn't come. Looked at the gate, looked at his phone. Texted once, then again. Nothing. Eleanor asked for me, and he invented an excuse he didn't even believe himself. Then his manner changed. He took the car and went to the address I had let slip in a conversation, a street near the train tracks. Cramped buildings, smell of frying, and old rain. When he knocked on my door and no one answered, he stood there for a second, looking at the dark window, as if the lack of light was a message. A neighbor opened the door with suspicion. Grant tried to speak politely, but the rush showed in his tone. Riley, have you seen her? The neighbor measured him from head to toe and dropped. Her grandmother went to the hospital early today. Rushed off. Grant didn't ask questions. Just turned and left, too fast to keep his pose. And I didn't see this, but I imagine his dried hands firm on the wheel. Jaw locked, no music. Nothing. Just that kind of decision that is born when you realize if you stay still, you lose. When I looked up in the hospital hallway and saw him coming toward me, I thought I was hallucinating. Grant was out of his setting. No suit, no security, just him, breathing short, hair a bit messy. I stood up on impulse, and the first thing that came out of my mouth was aggressive, because I didn't know how to be vulnerable there. What are you doing here? He stopped in front of me, looked at me like I was the only real thing in that hallway, and answered low, I came to get what is mine. I let out a dry, wounded laugh. I am not yours, Grant. He didn't try to argue, didn't raise his voice. He just took a step closer and spoke as if confessing. No, but it was you who gave me back my life. I felt my face burn, and I turned my face away, biting my lip not to cry in front of him. But my defense didn't hold anymore. He opened his arms slowly, waiting for me to decide. I stood stiff for a second, and then sank there because I was tired of carrying everything alone. And in that hug, he didn't try to fix anything with money, nor with pretty promises. He just stayed. As if staying was the rarest thing someone can offer. And I understood that the silence that scared him wasn't about a delivery. It was about losing me the way he had already lost himself before. When love heals, I expected him to leave after that hug. To go back to his world, to the gates, to the clean cars, and leave me and Nana Evelyn with our usual chaos. But Grant sat next to me on those hard hallway chairs as if it were a commitment. He took his phone out of his pocket, made 2 short calls, and I saw for the first time his power without a show. It wasn't screaming, it was precision. In half an hour, a nurse appeared with an extra blanket, someone brought water, and a doctor returned more calmly to explain what they were doing. I watched and thought, he's not here to command. He's here not to leave me alone. When Nana was finally transferred to a room, I went in and saw her looking too small in the bed, tired face, white hair spread on the pillow. I took her hand and felt the thin, warm skin. She opened her eyes slowly and looked at me like I was a child again. Riley, she whispered. I swallowed hard and rested my forehead on her hand for a second, without making a scene. Grant stood at the door, respecting the space, and when Nana noticed him, her eyes got curious. Who is that handsome boy with a troubled face? She murmured, and I almost laughed and cried at the same time. Grant took a step slowly and spoke low. I'm Grant. I'm Riley's friend. Nana squinted as if reading him from the inside. Friend? She repeated, suspicious in her own way. I was going to answer something, but the door opened again, and then the whole hospital seemed to change light for an instant. Eleanor Whitmore walked in with short steps, leaning on her cane, carrying a simple bouquet and a smile that didn't ask for permission. So this is where you're hiding my Riley, she said, as if we were in a living room, not a hospital. I was speechless. Eleanor approached the bed, handed the flowers to the nurse, and took Nana's hand delicately. Pleasure, ma'am. I'm Eleanor. Nana looked at her and let out an amused breath. Ah, so you're his mother. Eleanor winked like someone confirming a prank. I am, and I came to meet my daughter-in-law. I felt my face heat up instantly. Miss Eleanor? I tried to cut in, but she raised her hand. I speak what I see. Nana gave a weak little laugh and squeezed my hand. Girl, let this woman speak. She seems sharp, she said, and Eleanor laughed, satisfied. Grant stood there, still, mouth half open, as if no one had ever dismantled him like that. I looked at him and saw he wasn't trying to dominate anything. He looked grateful. As if, for the first time in a long time, his world had entered a simple room and found something priceless. In the following days, the routine changed. Grant showed up with real food, not cafeteria food. Eleanor showed up with books and soup, as if she had officially adopted Nana. I tried to resist, because I have pride and fear in equal measure, but they didn't come with pity. They came with presents. There was a day I went to the hospital bathroom, looked in the mirror, and saw my dark circles, crumpled clothes, hair tied up any which way. And even so, I didn't feel small. I felt held. When Nana improved enough to go home, Grant didn't make a hero speech. He just carried the bags, adjusted the car seat, and stood by her side at the entrance, waiting for her to take the first step calmly. Eleanor held my arm and whispered, "True love doesn't ask for permission, my child. It enters and takes care." I breathed short, because that hit me in a place I hid. And when I looked at the three of them there, Nana, Evelyn, Eleanor, and Grant, I understood that social distance at that moment had no strength. What existed was a simple, invisible bond, and too strong to be undone. The home fate built, I thought that after the hospital life would go back to normal. But normal for me was always surviving on the edge, and I couldn't pretend anymore that this was all I deserved. Grant started showing up not as a momentary visitor, but as a constant presence, discreet, without trying to become the owner of my story. He helped with what was needed, but I noticed his care in not turning everything into a check and a quick fix. It was more stuff like fixing the lock that kept failing, changing the hallway bulb, taking Nana to an appointment without making it look like a favor. One late afternoon, he asked me to get in the car without explaining much. I sat with my backpack on my lap, old habit, and watched the city pass by the window, old shops, crooked poles, the train cutting through the neighborhood as always. Grant drove with both hands firm on the wheel, but without rushing, as if he wanted me to breathe in every minute. Eleanor was in the back seat, quiet, smiling to herself like someone who already knows the ending of a book. "Where are we going?" I asked. Grant looked quickly at me and said, "Just trust me." "Please." We stopped on a calm street, with trees and small houses, no mansions, no high gates. A renovated, simple house with flowers in the yard and new curtains in the window, the kind that lets the light in without shame. I stood looking, not understanding. Grant got out first, opened the door for me, and led me to the porch. Eleanor followed slowly behind, leaning on her cane with a smile that already felt like family. Grant put the key in my hand, closed my fingers around it, and spoke low. "It's yours." I gasped because the word yours hit like a threat and a dream at the same time. "No," I answered instantly, and my jaw locked with anger and fear. "I don't want to be bought." Grant didn't argue. He just shook his head, as if he had predicted it. "Then it's not yours," he said, simply. "It's ours. If you want—" The sentence came calmly, without a trap. I looked into his eyes and saw what I had seen at the hospital. He wasn't trying to save me to feel better. He was trying to build a place where I didn't need to live on alert all the time. I walked in slowly and smelled fresh paint and clean wood. No screaming luxury, just space. A simple sofa, a small table, a bedroom with a window that closed properly. I ran my hand over the wall as if confirming it existed. Nana Evelyn entered behind me, leaning on Eleanor's arm, and let out a quiet "oh," moved in her own way. Eleanor looked at me and said, "Now you going to sleep without hearing the walls crying." I swallowed hard because she hit exactly where it hurt. Grant stood near the door, waiting for me to say yes or no without pressure. I turned to him and spoke the truth. I never wanted luxury. I just wanted a place where I could breathe in peace. Grant nodded, as if that were the fairest request in the world. "Then stay," he answered. "Because my home is where you are." And in that late afternoon, with the sun going down behind the trees, I saw Eleanor and Nana sitting on the porch with 2 mugs of tea, laughing softly like 2 old friends. I stood in the doorway watching, feeling the tears fall silently, because that's what it looked like. Not a gift, but fate building, piece by piece, a home that finally had room for me. Today, when I sit on the porch and watch Nana Evelyn having tea with Eleanor Whitmore, I still find it strange how life changes without asking permission. I didn't become a princess, and Grant didn't become a saint. Justice in this story didn't come with pretty speeches. It came with action. He learned to show up when no one is watching, to respect boundaries, to care without using money as a leash. And I learned that accepting help doesn't make me smaller, as long as that help comes with truth. Karma for me was simple. He had everything but lived empty. I had almost nothing but still had the strength to care for someone. In the end, that exchange fixed both sides. And the craziest part is that I didn't need to run away from my world to deserve love. It came to me. On my ground, at my pace, the right way. I would do it all again. And you? Would you have forgiven? If this story hooked you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today.